Hey everybody, Twin Dead here, and welcome back to Magium. So, I actually been trying for a week to try and figure out how to get to chapter 11, because my last video, actually, that was the end of chapter 10, and what I didn't realize is it actually had it right on Google, on the site. You could only get to the second to last chapter, which was chapter 10. You couldn't do chapter 11 on Google. It's only an Android or an iOS game, apparently. Unfortunately. So, I tried for quite a few hours to try and figure out what the frig to do. I actually made part of a video where I went through, I played the game over again 2, 3 different times, and it just didn't work. I played the chapter out and how many times itself. So I went on my phone, which I currently have an iOS, and I downloaded the game, and I went to the same chapter that I ended off at, and it continued. So I tried to set my Chromecast up, and that was a mess. So right now I ended up downloading an emulator that runs Android, and that's what I have right here. So if you want to play the game past chapter 10 on Google, unless you're way smarter than me, which is probably true, that's the only thing I can think of. So anyway, I'm going to continue on, and I honestly don't even know why I'm wearing these earphones like this because there's no sound. But anyway, alright, here we go. This ends off directly after the end of the chapter. I just clicked next chapter and it went like that. You're the Stillwater who obliterated the entire city of Ulmnar with one flick of his fingers, I ask Eden. I am indeed, Eden answers. But it didn't happen like that. But didn't that happen like 20 years ago, I say? Just how old are you exactly? Eden pauses a bit to think. Whoop, that's my phone. To be honest, I sort of lost track of a few hundred years ago, he says. The calendars have changed at least 5 times since I was born, so I have absolutely no idea what year we'd be in according to the old calendar. The closest approximation I can give to you is that I'm somewhere in my early 600s. You're more than 600 years old, I ask him. Yes, that's what I just said, Eden says. Try to pay attention. How could you? Flower asks Eden, while a tear flows from her eye. How could you kill all those people? What did the people of Ulmnar ever do to you? To me, Eden says, nothing. But the people of Ulmnar were the first ones who started hunting animals as a sport. They are the sole reason for the whole war that has started between animals and humans. They need to be punished. Punished? Flower asks, as her eyes turn red with rage once more. They all need to be punished? Even the elderly? Even the kids? Who gave you the right? If anyone's, it should have been Ilya's decision to make, not yours. Oh, right, the old fox, Eden says. I'd almost forgotten why I came here in the first place. He turns to me. Barry, Eden says, did you know the golden fox cast a tracking spell on all of you before you left the Lesthar ruins? A tracking spell, I ask? Why would she do that? I do not know, Eden says, but I'm suspecting that she must have taken interest in you as well. He then starts moving his index finger through the air as if he were pushing some invisible buttons in front of him. After a while, the golden light starts shining brightly all around us, and a hologram of the fox's head appears in front of us, soon afterwards. Eden, Elia says. Eden, is that you? Hello, old friend, Eden says. Did you miss me? Eden, what are you doing? The fox says. Stop this at once. The Stillwater pays her no mind, and he continues to fiddle around with her spell until he grabs onto what seems to be a golden string made of solid light. Eden, Elia shouts. Eden, don't you dare. Eden smiles and waves at the fox as he pulls the golden fox string, and both the lights surrounding us and the fox's head quickly disappear with a loud clinking noise. Interesting. Also, I apologize for the ads. I really can't. I would have got rid of them. Like, you can pay to get rid of them, whatever. I think it's like $1 or $2. I would have done it, but since it's the last chapter, I'm not going to bother. So, I'm probably going to. I think you have to either do a bunch of achievements or pay a couple dollars to do the second book, which from what I read. So I'm going to do that, and hopefully that gets rid of the ads as well. But I apologize for the ads. I just really apologize. Whoopsies. That's not what I wanted. What was that, I asked Eden? Did you deactivate the spell? Yes, but the spell is set to reactivate itself if the targets remain in the same area for too long, Eden says. I believe I overheard you saying you were headed towards the city of Caelius. Were you not? Allow me to give you a ride to your destination free of charge. He snaps his fingers, and I suddenly feel my whole body compressing itself into a single point. as all of my senses fade for one brief moment. And when I wake up, I find myself standing in front of a huge stone wall that seems to spread as far as the eye can see. I turn to Rose, who seems to have recovered from her violent coughing, and who is now measuring up the walls with her eyes. Rose, is this? I start to ask. But Rose answers me before I finish my question. Yes, she says. The city of Caelius. He wasn't lying. He really teleported us to our destination. Rose, Darren shouts as he rushes towards us. Apparently the paralysis effect has worn off, because Kate and Heydrich have also gotten up, and are now slowly approaching us as well. Rose, are you alright? Darren says. Do you need healing? No, I'm fine, Rose says. I only got a big scare out of it. Nothing serious. Arakai, I say, as I look towards Flower's amulet. Do you sense Eden anywhere around us? Is he hiding invisibly again? No, he didn't teleport here with the rest of us, Arakai says. Could you let us know if you ever sense Eden hiding invisibly around us again, I say. Yeah, sure. No problem, Arakai says. Really? I ask, surprised. Just like that? Just like that, Arakai says. As long as I get to piss Eden off, it's time well spent for me. So I'm guessing you and Eden have a history then, I ask. Oh yeah. Him and I go way back, Arakai says. Is that so, I say. Flower, Kate says as she comes closer. Are you okay? I'm fine, Flower says curtly as she wipes the tears from her eyes with the back of her hand. Do you need to talk? Or Kate starts to say, but Flower interrupts her. I'm fine, Flower shouts. Oh yes, maybe we should do it. Let's do that. Maybe we should take a small break before we enter the city. We could do that, Rose says. I'm already days ahead of my schedule. A few more hours won't make much of a difference. You hear that, Flower, I say? We can just... I suddenly noticed the girl moved away while I wasn't looking, and she's currently heading towards the city gates. Hey, Flower, wait up, I say as I catch up to her. Leave me alone, Flower says. Hey now, isn't there anything you want to... You there! We hear a city guard shout as he rushes towards us. What is your business here? Identify yourselves. It's okay, Ralph, Rose says, smiling. They're with me. Whoops. As the guard approaches, I see a warning message in front of my eyes, telling me not to hurt him because he's a local. I then get the same message from one of the guard's colleagues, who remain near the gates. Rose, thank the gods you're back, Ralph says. The whole oil drip situation has only gotten worse while you were gone. The entire Sparrow district has now been quarantined. The guard then looks at each of us in turn. I'm guessing you folks are the ones I should thank for bringing Rose back home safely, he says. You all have my deepest gratitude. Our town would not be the same without her. Is there anything I should know about before heading over to the Sparrow District, Ralph? Rose says. Yes, Ralph says. Nurse Martha said she needed to talk to you as soon as she came back. You should drop by her tent before doing anything else. Alright, Rose says. I'll be sure to go there as soon as I lead my new friends to my house. Then, thanks for letting me know. After finishing the conversation with Ralph... Wow, I read that wrong. After finishing his conversation with us, Ralph waved to his colleague, and the latter then opened the city gates to let us through. As we entered the city, I was surprised to see instead of the luxurious manors and villas, we were greeted by broken down wooden houses and a stench I could even drive off a skunk. Most people on the streets were dressed in rags, as they were all looking at us with an uneasy look in their eyes. Excuse me. As we passed them by, naturally, every single one of them had a warning message floating above their head, telling me that I couldn't harm them. Forgive me for maybe coming off as ignorant, Rose, Darren says, as we walk down the city streets for a while. But aren't the towns of Wrathia supposed to represent the peak of human civilization? They do, Rose says, but this is the beggars district. We enter through the eastern gate, but the nobles and royalty mostly use the western gate when they come into the city, and they rarely, if ever, set foot in this area. Your towns are divided according to the amount of wealth each individual possesses? Darren asks, shocked. Yes, Rose says. Isn't it the same on other continents? No, of course not, Darren says. They would only further increase the disparity between the rich and the poor, and cause unnecessary conflict between them. Oh, in Wrathia, most of the poor people are too afraid to seek conflict with the nobles, because in doing that, they'd only be endangering their entire families. Their families aren't their laws. Their families aren't there laws against this sort of thing? There are, Rose says, but the nobles aren't subjected to them. Oh, that sounds terrible, Darren says. I can't even begin to imagine the amount of discrimination that these people are faced with every day of their lives because of these unfair laws. How can this be allowed to happen? Well, Rose says, technically it's the nobles and the royalty who are allowing it to happen. So obviously they don't really have a problem with the way things are right now. You guys really live in a completely different world from us, don't you? All of a sudden, Flower, who hasn't really spoken a word since we entered the city, gasps loudly and puts her hands over her mouth. Oh gods, she says, I completely forgot I need to buy a new chain for Arakai's amulet. Can you guys wait for me here? I'm pretty sure there was a shop that had what I wanted somewhere near the city gates. Well, hurry up then, Heydrich says. I wouldn't want to spend more time here than is absolutely necessary. This place gives me the creeps. As Flower hurries off to the shop, Heydrich starts to look around for something to do while he waits. Hey, Darren, Heydrich says, there's an armor shop right over there by the corner. Want to come see what they got? This might be the perfect opportunity for you to finally get rid of that ugly breastplate of yours. I'll pass, Darren says with an acid tone in his voice. Suit yourself, Heydrich says with a grin as he goes to enter the armor shop. You two really don't get along, do you? Kate asks Darren. I don't know what you're talking about, Darren says. Me and Heydrich get along just fine. Right, Kate says. As we all stand there and wait, we suddenly hear a girl's scream coming from our right. When we turn around, we see that a large man in his 50s is currently brutally beating a 15-year-old girl in the middle of the street. Judging by his extravagant clothing and jewelry around his neck, he would even seem to be one of the local nobles, or maybe even royalty. The girl is dressed in rags, but not the sort of rags that would be worn by the people we've seen so far in the Beggars Town district. These clothes of hers look much more worn down, and it doesn't appear like there's been any effort to put into making them look aesthetically pleasing, even when they were new. Leaving her clothes aside, what is really strange here is that the girl doesn't seem to be offering any sort of resistance while she's getting beaten. She does not raise her hands to defend herself, she does not try to run, and she's not calling for help. What's more, the people in the streets are simply passing them by and ignoring them, as if nothing was happening. Oh. What the hell is wrong with everyone, Darren says. They're all acting like it's perfectly normal. I can't just stand around here and watch these things go on like this. I'm going to teach that fat bastard a lesson he'll never forget. Good, I hope he kills him. Darren, wait, Rose says as she grabs him by the arm. You can't. That man is related to one of the kings of Arathia, and that girl is his slave. She is his rightful property. She is his what? Darren says as his look darkens. Rose hesitates for a second when she sees the look in his eyes. Whoops. The girl is a slave, Rose continues. She doesn't have any rights or freedoms. That man is legally entitled to use her in any way he wishes and to dispose of her whenever he sees fit. Darren just stands there and looks at Rose for a few seconds, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. You're saying this is normal? Darren asks, her furious. Treating another person like this. Like they were nothing more than an object. Do you find this normal, Rose? Rose opens her mouth to speak, but no words come out for a few seconds. Regardless of whether I'm finding any of this normal or not, Rose says, with a shaky voice, the fact remains that the tournament rules still prohibit you from attacking any of the locals. You saw what happened to that mage who tried to attack me in the forest. You'll just get teleported out of here before you even get the chance to do anything. Darren clutches his fists, and as his hands start shaking with rage, but he's unable to come up with a proper retort. Instead, he decides to turn his head away from her and to continue watching the gruesome scene that was unraveling before our eyes. I'm sorry, the girl says, as the man beats her mercilessly. I'm sorry. I didn't ask for your apologies, you little wench, the man says as he looks down with her new swollen face with disgust. I asked for you to be useful. How am I supposed to expect anything from you if you can't even carry a few bags? Now that he mentions it, I realize that there are at least 10 bags full of clothes and groceries lying on the ground next to the girl. They must weigh a ton. Sir, please, the girl begs, on her knees. I barely got to sleep at all while I was at the slave market. I haven't even rested for 1 minute since you bought me this morning. If you'd only give me a few hours to regain my strength. The noble grabs the girl by the hair and lifts her head, in order to look at her straight in the eye. So you're saying it's my fault that you're so useless, he says. Is that it? No, the girl says, terrified. I would never. Maybe I should just gut you right here and now and find me a proper slave, the man says. One that can carry a few bags, one that doesn't talk back. After all, I only paid 10 silvers for you. That's practically pocket change for me. No, please, the girl says, now starting to cry. I promise I won't talk back anymore. I promise I'll be good. Just give me another chance. Oh, I hope he kills him already. Do you see now, Darren? We hear Eden's voice coming from behind us. You, Darren says, unable to contain his fear as he sees Eden's face. Do you see the true face of humanity you are so desperately trying to protect, Eden says. Take a look around you. Any of these people passing by could easily overpower that clown and save the girl, but they won't do it. Some of them would tell you that they're just obeying the law, Others would have you believe that they're only doing it to protect their families, but we all know what the real reason is. They're ignoring her because it's convenient. Because it's easier to lie to themselves and carry on with their lives than to face reality and give them some sort of meaning to their miserable existence. Upon hearing Eden's words, Rose lowers her head, and she starts staring at the ground in silence. But you're not like them, are you, Darren? Eden continues. I'm sure you would have jumped to save that poor girl in an instant if it were not for the tournament spell protecting the noble. Shut up, Darren says. It's quite a pity, isn't it? Eden says. The fact that you're forced to stand here and do nothing because of one meager spell. Eden smiles. What if I were to tell you, Darren, that I had a way to circumvent that spell, he says. I'd say you were out of your mind, Darren says. Eden laughs. You don't have to take my word for it, he says. Once I give you the power, you'll know that it's true. All you need to do is ask. Ask me for the power, Darren, and I will give it to you, without asking them for anything in return. You must have gone completely insane if you're actually thinking that I'd ever consider to ask you a favor, Darren says. Oh, Eden says, then I suppose that you're content in leaving that girl to her fate, while you walk away like all the others. Darren clenches his fist and bites his lip, but he doesn't say anything. Oh, yes. Yes. If Darren won't accept the power, then I will, I say. I was expecting you to say something like that, Eden says with a smile. Very well, then. The Stillwater then raises his hands, and the powerful wind starts spinning around them for a few seconds, as if the wind stops. Eden lowers his hands and he looks towards me. It is done, he says. Weird. I don't feel any different. Whoops. Look at the nobleman and try to imagine yourself hitting him, Eden says. You will see that the tournament spell no longer poses any resistance. As I do what he says, I'll realize that he's right. When I imagined myself hitting the noble before, I definitely felt some sort of force that was trying to stop me, my very train of thoughts from forming. But none of that happened anymore. I waste no time. I run towards the noble while I ready up my fists, my right fist. As soon as I reach him, I punch him hard in the face, which makes him fall on his back. What is the meaning of this? The noble shouts, furious, from the ground. How dare you? Do you know who I am? Sure, I tell him. Yet you're just another rich jackass who let all his wealth and social status go to his head. Welcome to the real world, buddy. Do you think you could afford to act cocky just because you somehow managed to break through the tournament's protection spell? The noble says. You have no idea who you're dealing with here, boy. Being eliminated from the mage tournament would be the least of your worries when I'm done with you. Oh, yes. Sweet satisfaction. Instead of replying to the noble, I calmly take the crossbow out of my backpack, I polish it up a bit, and then I start loading it. What is this supposed to be? The noble says as he gets up from the ground. Some sort of threat? You're not going to kill me, boy. You don't have the guts for it. You're just a little troublemaker. That's all you are. Do you want me to tell you what we do to troublemakers in Varathia? Not really, I answer the noble, as I shoot him in the head with a crossbow bolt. Yes! The man dies before he even hits the ground. As he falls, all the townsfolk who were walking down the street until now are stopping to look at him, with a terrified look in their eyes. As I put the crossbow in my backpack, I hear a sound of hands slowly clapping behind me. Marvelous, says Eden. You have my sincerest congratulations, Barry, on a job well done. He smiles. Now then, Eden says, if you don't mind me asking, what is your plan for saving the other thousands of slaves in the city? I beg your pardon, I say. Surely you must have realized that this isn't the only slave in the Varathia, Eden says. There are thousands more just like this girl, who are living through hell as we speak, and who can't even be sure they'll make it through the day alive. Are you going to save them too, Barry? Eden smiles wildly. Unless, of course, you only plan on saving the ones that cross your path, so you can pat yourself on the back and pretend that you made a difference. Oh, yes. Should I just ignore everyone who needs help just because I can't save the whole world? Eden paused for a bit to ponder my question. Well, if you put it like that, then I suppose you shouldn't. Eden says, very well then. I believe that my job here is done, so I'll take my leave. Eden raises himself in the air as he prepares to teleport out of the city. Oh, there's one last thing I should tell you before I go. The Stillwater says as he turns to Darren and Kate. The spell I cast just now on Barry was an area effect spell and not a targeted one. This means that it affected the whole area around me and not just him, so the two of you have been given the same gifts as your friend. The effect of my spell lasts indefinitely, so this power is yours to use as you please from this day forward. With that said and done, I bid you farewell. Eden then snaps his fingers, and he immediately disappears without a trace. Sir, the slave girl says as she pulls on my sleeve softly. Excuse me, sir. As I turn around, the girl takes a bow, and then she introduces herself. As she introduces herself, my name is Ella, she says, but most of my masters simply call me Slave Girl. I know I might not look like much, but if you will have me, I vow to serve you to the best of my ability until the day I die. Just give me my first order, and our contract will be complete. Sure thing, I guess you can start by shining my boots. Ooh, that'd be a dick move. Wait, I didn't mean to become your new master, I only meant to set you free. Oh, okay, how about coming with us, Rose, for the time being? Yeah. I'd come with us for the time being. As you wish, Master Ella says. Barry, Kate says, you can't just make decisions like this without asking Rose first. She's already agreed to letting us all stay at her house. Don't you think that's enough? It's okay, Kate, Rose says, smiling. I don't mind. In fact, I was just about to suggest the same thing. But for now, I think Ella should start by getting rid of these bruises. She turns to the girl. The tall man over there dressed in armor just so happens to be our group's healer. He'll fix you up in a jiffy. Isn't that right, Darren? Darren seems to be deeply buried in his own thoughts when Rose calls out to him. I took him all before he came to his senses and realized what she wanted from him. Yeah, he says. Sure, come on over, and we'll have a look. As Ella goes to get healed, Rose pulls me and Kate aside to have a little private conversation with us. Okay, listen up, Rose whispers to us. I don't want anyone getting any ideas of telling that poor girl that you're setting her free or anything of that sort. I'm looking at you, Barry. Why would it be so bad to make her understand that she is free to do whatever she likes from now on, I ask. Rose sighs. Even if the girl understands your true intentions, what would you expect her to do when she's free? Rose asks. She has no home to go to, no family, no friends, no possessions, and to make matters worse, everyone knows that she's been a slave until recently. Even if she was somehow to manage to find a place to work somewhere, no one would bat an eye if someone were to kidnap her and make her into a slave again. At most, you'd be giving her a small taste of freedom, which would be ripped away from her a few days afterwards. If you're telling us all of this, then I suppose you have a idea of what we can do with her, I say. I do, Rose says, smiling. I'm going to hire her as a maid at my house. I've always been a bit worried about leaving my two siblings alone when I went away for a long while. So I usually ask my ex-husband to check up on them every now and then. But if I had a maid take care of things, I would be much more relieved. Aren't you worried about leaving your little brother and sister home alone with a person you barely know? Kate asks. Taking into account the harsh training that slaves get these days, I very much doubt Ella would ever do anything to harm the children, Rose says. It would also be a while until I leave them again on such a long journey, away from home, so I'll get plenty of time to get to know her and learn what kind of person she is. Rose pauses. Besides, she says, Darren and Eden both made me realize that I hadn't been completely honest with myself until now regarding the way slaves get treated in our society. What Eden said was completely true. I really have been turning a blind eye to this whole situation because it was more convenient that way. I have no excuse. Even if I can't change the way our society thinks, I can still try to help where I can. Seeing Barry tackle the problem so directly in front of my eyes gave me the courage to finally start doing something about it myself. And for now, the way I can help is to provide a home and sense of purpose to this poor, unfortunate girl. Okay, you're all patched up now, Darren tells Ella. Thank you, sir, the girl says. Now that her bruises are gone, I get a good look at her face. I suddenly realize that Ella could be very well give Rose a run for her money in a beauty contest. Even though her messy black hair and her tattered rags she's wearing aren't doing her any favors, her face has all the features that make a girl look beautiful without any makeup. She has a small nose, high cheekbones, full lips, and large brown eyes, while her body's proportions seem almost fit perfectly balanced. If she's lived a normal life and she had attended a school like all the other girls her age, she would have likely been very popular. Girls would have killed to have her in their groups, and boys would have courted her every single day. She would have had a life that most girls her age could only dream of if she'd lived a normal life. All right then, Rose says, as she takes a sideways glance towards all the people who are standing on the side of the street, staring at us. We shouldn't linger here any longer. Let's go get Heydrich and Flower, and we'll take another route towards my house. When Heydrich saw us entering the shop to call for him, he seemed a bit disappointed. It appears that we would have liked to browse the shop's wares a bit more before leaving. Why did you all come to get me so early? Heydrich asked. Weren't we going to wait for Flower to come back? Some stuff happened which made us decide to pick up another route towards my home, Rose says. We'll tell you all the details when we get there. Uh-huh, Heydrich says. And I'm guessing those details will also cover how you all recruited a new team member in my absence. You catch on fast, Rose says, with a playful smile. Name's Heydrich, Heydrich says, as he approaches Ella. but most friends call me the dwarf. Pleased to make your acquaintance. The dwarf extends his hands towards the girl, but she gets scared, and she instinctively jumps back when he gets near her. Elle then looks at both me and Rose, seemingly asking for our approval, and when I nod to her, she hesitantly grabs Heydrich's hand and shakes it weakly. You've never really met a dwarf before, have you, lass? Heydrich asks Ella with a grin. It's a bit more complicated than that, Rose says. Like I said, we'll go over the details when we arrive at my house. Come on, let's go get Flower. We found Flower a few minutes later on one of the streets we'd taken when we first came into the city. She already finished replacing the chain on Araka's amulet, and she was also surprised that we didn't wait for her at our designated meeting spot, but she agreed to postpone her questions until we'd reached Rose's house. We took a somewhat roundabout way this time in order to make sure that nobody who saw the earlier scene was following us. As we advanced into the city, the scenery began to slowly change. Instead of broken down shacks, we started seeing more elegant houses, and even a few mansions. The putrid smell in the streets was also long gone by the time we'd finally reached Rose's house. To our surprise, despite her previous claim of living in relative poverty, Rose's house was in fact a very large mansion with 2 floors, the yard the size of a small park. Kate, can you stop suppressing your magical aura now? Oh, you can, sorry. Rose says as we walk across your yard. My siblings don't know what a banshee is, so there's no need to hide from them. Rose, I don't mean to sound rude, Heydrich says, but didn't you tell me that your 2 siblings were living in a modest life here in the city? Rose blushes. I am not the one who bought this house, Rose says. This is where I used to live with my old husband before we got divorced. He told me that he didn't mind me keeping this house for myself since he owned many other mansions in the better areas of the city. I meant to refuse him at first, but I had both my siblings and my sickly father to take care of at the time, and it would have been very hard for me to continue living with them in our old cramped house. Ah, he was just trying to win you back with a little parting gift, was he? Heydrich asked with a grin. Wow, that was loud. Sorry for the noise, too. You might want to turn down your volume a little bit, because that's just nuts. I actually went a while without an ad, so that's pretty good. Actually, no, Rose says. The main reason why we broke up is that Enrique, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, was never really the kind of man who would be happy tied down to only one woman. After we got divorced, he told me that during our marriage he felt like a caged bird and was denied the freedom to soar the skies, in search of stars that shine brightly in the night. He also told me that no matter how many stars he ended up visiting, I would always remain the sun that outshined them all, and he'd never love another one with as much passion as he loved me. Rose giggles. It was always hard to take him seriously when he said things like that, Rose says, smiling. Look, it's Rose, I hear a young girl shout from a distance as she comes running towards us. Rose is back. Come quickly. The girl, who appears to be Rose's 8-year-old sister, is now waving towards her 9-year-old brother, and they both race across the yard until they finally reach us. Rose, look, the girl says, with a proud tone in her voice, as she takes something out of her pocket and shows it to her. Billy's already 14 years old, and he's just as lively as ever. See? Billy. Okay. That's really good news, Susie, Rose says, smiling as she pats her sister on the head. I'll admit that I was a bit worried about him for a while I was gone, but I see now that I had no reason to doubt you. Oh, that makes sense. I noticed the virtual pet toy that Susie is holding in her hand looks incredibly similar to my stat device, even more so than I remembered. Could it also be some ancient device made by the Lesathai which holds hidden powers like the fortune teller's trinket that I have in my pocket? I want to borrow it. Susie, I say, can I borrow the toy of yours for a second? I just want to look at something. No, the girl says. It's mine. You can't have it. Honestly, I don't know what else I was expecting when I asked that question. Alright then, how about a trade? I say, as I take out my stat to booster out of my pocket. I'll let you play around with this for a while while I take a look at your toy. Deal? The girl tries to feign indifference when she sees my stat device, but it's easy enough to see that I've piqued her interest. Eventually, she gives in and agrees to temporarily trade her device for my own. As I study her toy closely, I notice that there is a small marking on the side which looks much like a bended fork. But aside from that, there is nothing else that stands out. I didn't even feel the faint tingling sensation that I usually get when my stat device tries to attach itself to my aura. Maybe it is only a toy after all. Yeah, sure, it's a good idea just to hand your device over to her like that, Barry, Heydrich asked me, grinning. Aren't you worried that she'll completely mess up all your stats when she plays around with it? Nah, I say. I made sure to lock all her stats before I gave it to her. The only Yeah, the only thing that she can do right now is look at the screen. Once I'm done looking at my toy, I give it back to Rose's sister in exchange for my stat device. You tricked me, Susie says with a pouty face. Your toy is broken. It doesn't do anything. That's not fair. Life is never fair, kid, I tell her, as I put my stack device back in my pocket. It's better to learn that while you're young. Don't you listen to him, Susie, Rose says. Barry's just grumpy because his parents would only give him broken toys when he was a kid. Susie giggles. Poor Barry, she says. Poor Barry, her brother mimics her. Rose, Darren says, could you show me to my room? All I want to do right now is lie down in bed for a while. Certainly, Rose says. Follow me. I'll show you the way. We'll come too. We'll come too, Rose siblings say in unison. Okay, you'll come too, Rose says, smiling. She then turns to us. Please, make yourselves comfortable. You can come inside the house and wait in the main hall if you'd like. Nah, we're good for now, Heydrich. Thanks, Heydrich says. We'll just sit at one of these picnic tables. I'll be right back, Rose says as she goes with Darren and her siblings inside the mansion. I want a mansion. I can't believe this, Heydrich says. After hearing all of our story, you can say... So you're saying that now me and Flower are the only ones who can't attack any of the locals because we weren't there when Eden cast a spell. Actually, I never had that problem to begin with, Flower says. I'm not participating in the tournament, remember? Their spell doesn't affect me. Great, Heydrich says. Just great. Why did I have to enter that armor shop? They didn't even have anything worth buying. Excuse me, master, says Ella, who is seated right next to me. I don't mean to interrupt, but you haven't given me any tasks to perform since we arrived here. Oh, it's fine, I tell her. Don't worry about it. You can just sit there and rest for now. Yes, sir, the girl says. Instead of calming her down, my words seemed to only make her even more restless. She is now fidgeting nervously and sweating all over as she stares intently at the table in front of her. There you are, Rose says as she approaches us and then seats herself next to Flower. Darren's already unpacked his bags. Would you like me to show you to your rooms? We can do that later, Heydrich says. Ella's been sitting there, biting her nails for the past 15 minutes because she doesn't have anything to do. Don't you have any work around the house that you need doing? Oh no, I couldn't possibly make her work so soon after what she's been through, Rose says. She turns to the girl. Ella, Rose says, you can go to sleep for as long as you need, and after you're well rested, I'll give you the tour of the house. Is that okay with you? Ella suddenly jumps to her feet, with a very scared look in her eyes and her face. There's no need to give me the test, the girl says. I promise I will work my hardest. I won't disappoint you, I promise. Her sudden outburst had temporarily rendered us speechless. We were all paused to look at each other for a few seconds. Ella, nobody is testing anyone, Rose says. Please sit down. You must be really tired. Yes, sir, Ella says, with a high-pitched tone, almost as if she were about to cry, and then she sits herself down again. Rose, what is she talking about, I say. What kind of test is she referring to? I don't know, Rose says. I've never heard anything like this before. She's talking about the test of loyalty, Kate says. All of a sudden, it's a test used to make sure that prisoners don't try to run away from their captors. They used it quite a bit at the beacon. I don't get it, Heydrich says. Why does the girl think that we're testing her? We never implied that we were going to do anything of the sort. Because you're all being too nice, Kate says. And that's always how a test of loyalty begins. At the beacon, every now and then, a member of the staff or a complete stranger would start acting very nice and considerate with one of the orphans out of the blue. After some time, when they were sure they had gained their trust, they'd suddenly say that they wanted to help them escape. If the orphan believed them and followed their instructions, they would be recaptured by the very person that tried to help them, and told that it was all a test of loyalty and they had failed. Then they would either be beaten senseless for breaking the rules, or they would be killed to serve as an example for all the other orphans. This way, if anyone ever actually tried to help out one of us, we never believed them, and we choose to remain prisoners out of fear. Rose gasps. My God, that is horrible, she says. But what if you say is true, then how are we going to convince Ella that we're telling the truth? We're not going to convince her, Kay says, even after hearing us discuss these things openly in front of her like this. She still probably thinks this is all just part of an elaborate act in order to make her lower her guard. She must think that once she agrees with the rest, she'll have failed the test and will deem her worthless, just like that noble. Ask Kate if there's anything we could do to make the girl less suspicious of us. Order Ella to trim the bushes in garden. Fine, I say. Ella, go trim those bushes over there. That's an order. Yes, sir, the girl says, as she gets up in a hurry and goes to search for some trimming shears. Damn it, Barry, Heydrich says. We're trying to help her, not stress her out even more. No, this is good, Kate says. Having something to do will at least ease her mind for the time being. In the meantime, we're going to have to think of a way to make her get more accustomed to her current situation. As Ella starts to trim one of the bushes, Rose's siblings both come running out of the mansion and they stop right next to her, apparently trying to start a conversation. I think I might have an idea, Rose says, with a smile, as she looks at the three of them. You're very pretty, Susie tells Ella. Thank you, miss. Sir, Ella says, looking a little confused. Susie giggles. I like you, she says. You're funny. I think I have the perfect job for you, Ella, Rose says as she approaches the girl. But what would you have me do, sir? Ella asks. I want you to follow my little sister, Susie, around wherever she goes, and I want you to listen to her every order for the remainder of the day, Rose says, with an evil smile. Of course, Ella says, I will not let you down. Susie gasps. She'll do anything I say, she asks. Anything you say, Rose says with a smile. Susie squeals happily when she hears Rose's answer. Ella, follow me, she says. I know exactly what we're going to do. Yes, miss. Sir. Ella says as she follows the little girl into the mansion. You're sure that was a good idea? Heydrich asks. I'm positive, Rose says. Now come on, I'll show you each of your rooms so you can unpack. After we each settled down in our own rooms, we went to meet outside with Rose, who needed to go to visit the Sparrows district in order to bring all of her collected herbs to the sick. She said she'd most likely come back by sundown, and that she'd leave the house in our care until then. And we all waved Rose goodbye. Susie suddenly comes out of the front door, pulling Ella by the hand while she rushes towards us. If I didn't know that Ella's left with Susie a little while ago, it would have taken me a minute to figure out whose hand the little girl was holding. The formal slave girl was nearly unrecognizable. Was now wearing an elegant green dress, while her hair had been cleaned up and meticulously braided. She looks stunning. I guess this explains why the two of them have been doing for the past 2 hours. Ta-da! Susie says, with a very proud look on her face. Wow, Heydrich says. That's, quite the change. Are you the one who braided her hair, Susie? Yep, the little girl says, beaming. Isn't she beautiful? Come on, Ella. Don't be shy, and turn around so everyone can see. Ella seems to be very flustered about all of this, and her cheeks could not be any more red. She probably isn't used to getting this much attention. She turns around, just as ordered, so we could all have a look at her braided hair. Looking at it closely, you could clearly see there's been a lot of work put into it. The girl must have been at it for at least the better part of an hour. Come on, Ella, Susie says as she grabs her hand, and she pulls her back down towards the mansion. Let's play. Me, Heydrich, Kate, and Flowers spent the rest of the day at one of the picnic tables, chatting and eating some more of Flowers' magically conceived delicacies. Darren did not come out of the mansion at all during the day, so he must have been spent most of the time in his room. As we all sat down at the table, every once in a while we'd catch a glimpse of Susie and Ella running around the yard or playing hide and seek. As the sun started to set, it was becoming quite clear that Ella was making great effort to keep up with the little girl's demands as she got more and more tired. Faster, Susie says as Ella runs around the yard, giving her a piggyback ride. You can do it, Ella. Faster. Hey, Susie, Rose's little brother says as he watches Ella run in circles around the yard. Ella will do anything you say, right? Yep, the girl says. Tell her to stand on her hands, the boy says. What? Susie asks, shocked. No, why would I tell her to do that? Because it'd be fun to watch, the boy says. I won't tell her to stand on her hands, Kevin. Why not? She'll do anything you tell her to do. So where's the problem? That doesn't mean we have to make fun of her, Susie says, visibly upset. Kevin says, you're no fun. No, you're no fun, Susie says. You're just a mean... Whoopsies. You're just a mean meanie head. That's why you don't have any friends. Susie gets down from Ella's back as she hugs her tightly, while giving her brother a menacing look. Don't worry, Ella, the little girl says. I would never do anything to hurt you. Ella now looks like she's barely able to stand on her feet. Thank you, miss, she says with her last of her strength, and then she faints due to exhaustion. Ella, Susie screams. When we see what happened, me and Heydrich both rush simultaneously towards Ella, and the first thing we do is make sure that she is still alive. The girl is still breathing, but she has a very high fever. I did this, Susie says, as tears start streaming down her face. I killed her. I shouldn't have asked her for that piggyback ride. I should have seen that she was too tired. Now she's going to die and it's all my fault. After she finishes her last sentence, the girl breaks down into uncontrollable crying, and she buries her head in her arms. I'll go get Darren, I say. You guys find an empty room for her to get her lying on a bed. Heydrich nods to me, and I go rushing through the mansion's door and up the stairs all the way to Darren's room. Darren! I shout as I knock as hard as I can on his room's door. Darren, are you in there? Barry, what happened? Darren asks as he opens the door. Are we being attacked? No, but Ella just fainted from exhaustion. She has a really high fever, I tell him. We need your help. Lead the way, Darren says as he gets a very serious look on his face. I take the stairs down and I head towards the empty room that's the closest to the mansion's entrance, since that was probably where everyone else was headed. Sure enough, when we get there, we see that everyone was already waiting for us and that Ella was lying in bed, still unconscious. Why didn't anyone tell her to get some rest, Darren says, as he casts a healing spell on the girl. She was already exhausted enough when we first met her. We tried to, Kate says, but she wouldn't listen. She was too afraid that if she showed any weakness, we'd discard her without thinking, like that noble. That low-life bastard, Darren says, as he clenches his fist. I'd kill him if it weren't already dead. After Darren finishes the spell, we could see the girl's breathing was starting to become more relaxed. I took care of the fever, Darren says, but the fatigue is still there. She needs to rest for a while in order to fully recover. Oh gods, what happened here, Rose says as she enters the house, and she sees us all standing around Ella's bed. The girl overworked herself, and she fainted from exhaustion, Heydrich says. I figured that might happen, Rose says. Is she going to be okay? She's fine. Darren says she's just tired. But she won't be able to work anymore for the rest of the day. I could still work, Ella says, as she wakes up from hearing Darren's words as she tries to get out of bed. Excuse me. Only to fall on her back soon afterwards. Ella, you're alive, Susie says as she hugs her with all her might. You're alive. Master, I can still work, Ella says with a desperate look in her eyes as she tries to get out of bed again but fails. Please just give me another order. No, Rose says as she frowns at her. You can't work anymore today. You can't even get out of bed. That means that as a slave you are completely worthless to me now, and the only fate that awaits a worthless slave is death. Ella looks at Rose with fear in her eyes, but she no longer has the strength to fight back. Rose grabs the girl's hand between her palms and looks her in the eyes, and then she gives her a warm smile. But you're not a slave anymore, Rose says. You have no longer been a slave ever since Barry saved you from that noble today. I did not bring you here to work for me as a slave. I brought you here to work for me as a maid. If I truly considered you to be my slave, then nothing should have been stopped me from ending your life when you became a burden to me. You of all people should know this better than anyone. Fear in Ella's eyes is slowly starting to leave her, and it looks as if she's finally beginning to understand what Rose really means. You are free, Ella, Rose continues. You are no longer bound to it by anyone or anything. You can go wherever you want and do whatever you want for as long as you want. You don't have to listen to anyone's orders ever again. And you can make your own choices about living in fear. Rose pauses. But if you'll allow me to make a selfish request, Rose says, I would be very grateful for you if you chose to remain here. I don't have a lot of money to give you, and the kids will probably drive you half mad all the time. Drive you mad half of the time. But Susie has already gotten very attached to you, and I think she'd really miss you if you were gone. I can't promise that you'll have a good life here, but I can promise that we'll try our hardest to make you feel at home, Ella. Would it be too much to ask you to keep working for us for a while longer? No, Ella says, as she looks like she's about to cry. Of course not. I would love to keep working here. My time spent here has been the happiest of my life. I don't want to leave. I promise that I'll work hard and that I'll never betray your trust. Then our contract is complete, Rose says as she smiles, and she shakes the girl's hand. You can start working chores as soon as you're fully recovered. But if you're really keen on not slacking off today, you can still play with Susie. I'm pretty sure that she's not planning to leave your bedside anytime soon. Now that Rose had finally managed to put Ella's worries to rest, we decided to leave her alone with Susie, so that she could take her mind off of work for a few hours. Since it was getting close to bedtime, we each started heading towards our own rooms, and we'd meet up again in the morning to plan what we wanted to do next. Before going to bed, I took a nice long bath in one of the many bathrooms available in the mansion. It was nice to bathe in hot water for a change. After all those days of washing in cold lakes and rivers, as I entered my room, my stat device started beeping loudly. It's been a while since I've gotten any new points to spend on my stats. I need to be extra careful with what I choose to upgrade this time, because at this rate, who knows when I'll be getting my next batch of points. I take the stat device out of my pocket and start thinking of how best to use these points. Oh, invest them later. Knock, 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 Rose says, while standing near the door, as she sees me focusing intensely on the stat device. Am I interrupting something? No, no. I was just about done, as I put my stat booster back in my pocket. It's a good thing you didn't go to sleep yet, she says, as she walks in my room, carrying a tray full of muffins. I know that these muffins will not compare to anything that flour can cook up, but I really want to show you my appreciation for what you did today, somehow. She places the tray on a small table near my bed, and she seats herself on the bed next to me. These are really good, I tell her, after I take a bite. But there was no need to go out of your way to make them just for me. I don't remember doing anything special. You're the one who came up with the idea to have Ella spend her day with Susie. You're the one who finally managed to calm her down, not me. You know very well what I'm talking about, Barry, Rose says. I'm talking about the moment when you took it upon yourself to save that girl's life, despite the enormous risks and dangers that you put yourself in because of it. Oh, there's no need to thank me for that, I say. I only did it because I felt it was right at the time, not because I wanted any reward. Ooh, snap. I know, Rose says, smiling, and that's why I'm thanking you. Your selfless actions are what gave me the courage to finally start addressing the problem that I've been trying to ignore for all these years. Seeing that girl's face light up when I told her that she could stay here made me happier than any other reward I ever could. After all these years, I finally feel like I'm starting to make a difference. And it's all thanks to you, Barry. Rose pauses. Do you remember the discussion we had the first day we met? Rose asks. When I asked you if there was anything going on between you and Kate. Yes, I remember, I say. Do you still feel the same way about me as you did back then? I like you more now than I did before. Ooh. Of course not. I like you more now than I did back then. Rose blushes. She doesn't say a word for a few seconds, and then she suddenly gets a very determined look at her face. Alright then, Rose says, as she gets up from the bed, goes to close and lock the bedroom door, and then comes back to place herself right in front of me. What are you? I start to say, but I don't get to finish, as Rose bends over and kisses my lips softly. She then gets on top of me and slowly pushes me down onto the bed, and her lip remains pressed against mine. Wait, I say. We're doing this now? Why not? Rose asks me, with a playful smile. Would you rather do this in some ruins while fighting a bunch of ogres? Well, no, but I mean, we're still kind of in the middle of the Deadly Mage tournament, I say. We're not getting married, Barry, Rose says, smiling. It's just one night. As long as I drink my tea of infertility in the morning, we may as well part ways tomorrow. Nothing will have changed. Yes, but Rose put tea of infertility. Good Lord. Rose puts her index finger on my lips in order to silence me. I will not hear another word from you, she says. This is my thanks to you for everything you've done for me since we first met. We're doing this, and that's final. She's aggressive. Interesting. She smiles. You don't need to worry about anything, Barry, she says. Just close your eyes and let me take care of everything. I promise that neither of us is going to regret this. Oh my god. It's like I'm watching porn. She then presses her lips against mine once more, and she starts to slowly unbutton my shirt. And the next 2 hours seemed like they were almost like a dream. Was I really still... 2 hours? Barry. Wow. Was I really still in the same place where I've been desperately fighting for my life for almost a week? The same place where I spent my time fighting dragons, dodging traps, and stealing treasures from ogres? Actually, now that I pause to think about it, last week is starting to sound a lot more like a dream than what happened tonight. Maybe it was really a dream. I mean, seriously, dragons? Who in the right mind would ever believe a story like that? With these final thoughts, I put my head on the pillow, I hug Rose tightly in my arms, and I close my eyes. I wake up several hours later to the sound of Darren's voice. Barry, wake up, he says. You're not planning on sleeping in again, are you? Come on, get up, or we'll leave you behind. As Darren leaves, I take a look outside my window and see that the sun had only just risen about an hour ago. Everyone was already waiting outside, and Rose's siblings were running around the yard, as lively as ever. I guess it wasn't a dream after all. Man. That's a pretty good page. I jumped out of bed and get dressed, but I don't take my backpack with me. Darren probably only meant that we were going downtown to get some supplies. I take some money with me and my dagger, just in case, and then I head downstairs. Rose wasn't in my room when I woke up, which means that she most likely left early, in order to avoid turning us into today's main headline. It was probably for the best. I don't think I could ever bear the look at Heydrich's smug grin if he ever found out what happened last night. About time, Darren says as I approach everyone who was waiting in the yard. What took you so long? Where are we going? Asked Rose as I completely ignored Darren's question. We are going to the hospital from the beggars district. Rose says, I went there yesterday after visiting the Sparrow district, and I saw a lot of wounded who weren't being treated properly due to a severe lack of qualified personnel. None of them seemed to be in critical condition, but Darren's healing spells would be a godsend to those people. At first, I only wanted to bring Darren, but Heydrich insisted that we all go. It's safer if we all stick together, Heydrich says. Just because we're in a city doesn't mean that we can let our guards down. We're still in the middle of a deadly mage tournament, after all. Alright, is everyone ready, Rose says. Wait, Rose, I just remembered. I wanted to ask you something. Yes, Flower, what is it? Did something happen to you while you were in your room last night? Flower says. No, nothing happened. Why do you ask? Rose says. Well, I thought that you might have been afraid of getting attacked in your sleep or something, since this morning I saw you come out of Barry's room instead of yours, Flower says. After Flower finishes her sentence, her eye suddenly turns bright blue, and Luna smacks herself hard in the forehead. Rose's face suddenly had turned completely red, and everyone else was now looking straight at us. Rose, Kate says, looking very flustered. Did you and Barry... Ha ha ha. Heydrich laughs loudly. Way to go, Barry. I always knew you had it in you. Wait, Rose says, trying hard not to panic. This isn't what you think. It was only for one night. We're not... Darren coughs loudly all of a sudden, and he drowns out Rose's words. Rose, he says, which way did you say the hospital was? Again, are we taking the same road as yesterday? No, Rose says, as she rushes in front of us. There's no reason to take the roundabout way anymore. We can take a more direct path this time. Follow me. I'll show you the way. After we had left the mansion, nobody mentioned anything about me and Rose anymore. Darren's intervention seemed to have been enough to bring them all back to their senses. He may be an ass most of the time, but when push comes to shove, I guess he can really be a lot of help. I owe him one for this one. It took us less than an hour to reach the beggars district this time around. The foul smell was still there, but somehow it didn't bother me so much anymore. Maybe I had gotten accustomed to it in the meantime. Rose, Kate says, as we travel through the beggars district, are you sure this is a good idea to seen along beside us right now? We may have well become wanted criminals in the city after yesterday's incident. Oh, you don't need to worry about me, Rose says. A few years ago, our king enacted a law that prevented us locals from being incriminated by simply associating with criminals from other continents. Since Varathians aren't prone to associating with outsiders in general, it is assumed that when they do, it is because they are being held hostage. The Gnome King has enacted many such laws that protected us from harm over the past few years. He is seen as the king of the people, and many look up to him because of that. Hostage? Has the spell protecting you from outsiders malfunctioned before now? How does the king... Oh. Woo! That was loud. Oh my god, that was loud. Okay, hold on. Yeah, okay. I apologize for the friggin' jump scare ads. Holy crap. Woo! Sorry about that. Hostage. Has the spell protecting you from the outsiders malfunctioned before now? The spell they used to prevent you from attacking us has never been used before, as far as I know, Rose says. I don't know how they managed to do it for this tournament, but I'm supposing that they either cooperated with a very talented mage, or they somehow got their hands on a powerful new device. So far, whenever the people got invited to the continent, they would be kept under strict supervision, and they'd be teleported back if they misbehaved. However, there have been cases where outsiders have not been properly kept in check, and they caused quite a bit of damage before they were finally punished. You said earlier that this king of yours is a gnome, Heydrich says. Did I hear that right? Yes, you heard me right, Rose says. Whoops. Crap. Are we talking about the same kind of gnomes here? Heydrich says. You know, this frail-looking little people that can't grow a beard and are even smaller than dwarves. The ones that are so disorganized that they can't even form their own country, choosing instead to live in their lives as nomads who never settle down in one place for more than a few years. They may be seen as disorganized by many people, Rose says, but no one can deny the fact that they are also incredibly resourceful, and that most of the great inventors of our time are of gnome origin. The king of Caelius was also a renowned inventor before he was elected as king. Elected? Kate asked, shocked. Do you mean to say that the current king of Caelius is not of royal blood? Yes, that's what I'm saying, Rose says. The old king of Caelius did not leave an heir, and before he died of old age, he made a public announcement saying that he wanted the next king to be elected through a vote, so that he may become a true king of the people. Naturally, the nobles did not really agree with this, but they couldn't defy the kings openly, so they were forced to hold a vote. Despite their misgivings, since Golmick was very well known for his inventions and for his cheerful personality, he quickly became the favorite candidate, and he was eventually chosen by a vast majority to rule over our kingdom. I don't mean to interrupt, Luna says, but is this the marketplace supposed to be for so deserted at this hour? I would have expected at least merchants to be awake at this time in the morning. No, you're right, Rose says. This is strange. Usually this place is filled with people around this time of day, and come to think of it, most of the streets that we've passed by so far have been empty as well. This smells like an ambush to me, Heydrich says. Yes, definitely an ambush, Arakai says. There are 2 mages heading our way right now. They will appear in front of us once they pass the corner. Just as Arakai finishes her sentence, the whole area around us is lit by a bright green light for a few seconds, and immediately afterwards, Rose loses her consciousness and falls on the ground. Darren rushes to her side in order to check her pulse and signals to us that she is still alive. Where did that light come from, Heydrich says. Did those 2 mages do it? It's very likely, Luna says. You may have realized it because I am still controlling the body, but Flower has also fainted, and I can't wake her up. She looks like she is in some sort of stasis, much like the one I put her in when we were at the Ogre Fort. As Darren tries to wake Rose up, the 2 mages that were coming our way finally make their appearance. One of them is dressed in black robes and has a snake tattoo on his bald head, while the other one is wearing green robes and a silver circlet on his head. I immediately recognize them as being the 2 followers of the god of death and the god of fate that tried to kill us with the Stillwater skeletons on the day we met Heydrich. So much for your stupid trap, Zack, the mage in the green robe says. We paid all that money, and all we managed to do is knock out the one member of their team who can't even put up a fight. Silence, fool, Zack says. The merchant warned us that the trap had a low chance of success against trained mages. And we didn't just get one of them, we got 2. If you look closely, you can see that the little girl is actually a fusion of 2 souls. We managed to put the host in a dormant state, while the Banshee is still keeping control of the body. You, Darren shouts at the 2 mages. How are you still here after hurting Rose? Why didn't the mage torment spell send you back? I would ask you the same thing, healer in armor, says the mage in green robes. Didn't you or one of your friends kill on a local yesterday? That is what it says on the poster, after all. He takes a rolled poster out of his sleeve, and he unfurls it in front of us, so we can all see its contents. On the piece of paper, we see some poorly drawn sketches of me, Darren, Kate, and Eden, along with that title says, Wanted, dead or alive, Darren the healer in armor, and his accomplices, for the murder of the Earl of Allendor. The reward on our heads is in local currency and that I'm unfamiliar with, but I'm guessing that they're probably offering a lot of money, given the circumstances. We just happened to see this poster yesterday while we were looking for a few bounties to kill some time. The mage in the green robe says, we quickly agreed that it was no mere coincidence, but the hand of fate that was guiding our actions. It wasn't fate, Zack. It was the god of death himself who was giving us another chance to make up for our miserable failure from last week. This time we'll make sure that you send all of you to your graves in the name of my god. Yeah. How did you know we'd be here? Kate asked him. It's all thanks to your friend over there, the green-robed mage says. He points towards Rose. Some beggar overheard her telling a nurse at the hospital that she'd been bringing a skilled healer to tend the sick. He sold us the tip for a reasonable sum, and we arranged the emptying of the streets together with the local guards, in case the healer in question was indeed the one we were looking for. Now then, Zack, you should just stand aside and while I deal with these weaklings. I alone should be more than enough to finish them off. No, you're not, Darren says. We already know that your god specializes in illusions. Illusions are useless against enemies who rarely expect them. Are you sure about that, healer? The green-robed mage says, and all of a sudden hundreds of clones of both him and his ally fill the entire marketplace around us. You haven't moved from your original position, genius, Darren says, as he dashes towards him. I know which one is the real you. As Darren reaches the 2 original mages, he slashes his sword and cuts through both of them with one strike. Instead of dying, however, the 2 mages simply fade into thin air. What is the meaning of this? Kate asks. If those 2 are the fact illusions, then does that mean the real mages were hiding invisibly while they cast the illusion spell? Arakai says, why didn't you tell us the mages were invisible? Because they weren't. Arakai says, if any of them were to hide invisibly, I would have sensed them. Then how do you explain the fact that the ones we were seeing were in fact illusions, I ask. How am I supposed to know that, jackass? Arakai says. Figure it out yourself. Can't you at least figure out which ones of these are the originals, I ask? No, Arakai says. I never bothered to learn how to tell the difference between clones and originals. because whenever someone would cast a spell like this against me, I would simply use a spell of my own to destroy them all at the same time, and that would be the end of that. Does anyone have any idea why none of those clothes have attacked us yet? Heydrich asks us. They're just standing there, smirking like a bunch of morons. You think they're waiting for something? Ask Kate if she can freeze the whole area. Try to concentrate. Just kill everything. Oh, crap. Crap. Kate, I say, could you freeze the entire area around us? Yes, Kate says. I was about to do just that. Since it's a powerful wave of freezing magic all around us, which hits us with clothes at once. Immediately after the illusions disappear, Kate's freezing wave reverses in its direction, and it hits us before we get the time to react. As the others shake off the ice spells on the right, I can feel myself slowly freezing to death, while my heartbeat gets slower and slower by the second. Kate, I'm freezing, quick. Darren says. I can't, she says. I don't know how. Darren rushes towards me to try to catch the spell. I can already feel my conscience slipping away, and my vision starts to blur. Kate, I die short. They're even finding out Kate. Poop. Ugh. Oh, I'm way back here. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. I'm going to try the other option. I didn't invest the points yet, just in case there's something else, because this is probably going to be the last time I get to do the points in the game. Or this chapter or whatever. Try to concentrate on finding the originals and ignore the clones for now. Bam. I'll try to freeze the Hoyer around us so I can take care of all the clones for now. No, wait, I say. I think we should concentrate on finding the originals first. You think that destroying the clones might trigger a trap? Kate says. I don't know, I say. But the fact that the clones are not moving at all makes me think that they're at the very least waiting for something. As long as they're not actually doing anything, I think we should take advantage of the situation and try to figure out their trick before we engage them. Wait a minute, Rack says. I think I got it. Did you find the original? Which ones are the originals? Kate asks. No, but I found out what kind of illusion spell they are using. Arakai says. This is actually one from one of Memphis' favors. No wonder he started teaching it to his followers. Memphis? Heydrich asks. Is that the name of the god of fate? Yeah, that's him, Arakai says. The spell is designed in such a way that when all the illusions get destroyed, the attacker gets hit back with all the spells they'd cast to slay the clones. I always used to fall for that stupid trick. How can you tell it's the exact same spell, I ask her. If you pay close attention, you will see that all the clones have an easily recognizable signature in their magical auras, Arakai says. The flow of their auras has a sort of a slithering motion to it, kind of like a snake moving through the grass. Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah, I think I get it, I say. Hey, I think I can see it too, Heydrich says. This is great. Now we just need to see which one of them don't carry the signature, and we'll know the originals are. Arakai says. Good luck with that. That worked. What are you saying? Why are you saying this, Kate says. Because I already checked, Arakai says, twice. None of them are the originals. Are you saying that the real mages were never actually here, and they just cast illusion spells from afar, Darren asks. No, Arakai says. I've been monitoring the whole area around us ever since I noticed that the streets were empty. And I guarantee you that the only mages who were close enough to cast an illusion spell on us were the two that ambushed us. But that makes no sense, I say. If those two are the real mages, then what happened to them? Did they just turn the illusions when they cast a spell? Suddenly, an idea I can't even talk. Suddenly, an idea comes to me. Wait, I say. I think I might be onto something, but I'll need some confirmation before I'm sure. Aluna, check my thinking. Could this all be an illusion? Not just the clones before us, but the whole world around us too. You know, like the time with the shaman. No, that's impossible, Aluna says. If a mind-affecting spell of that caliber had been cast on us, then there should have been a visual effect of some sort, for all of us to see, in the same way that the underground caverns were filled with the smoke when the shaman cast his spell. There was no such. Aluna pauses for a second. A realization dawns upon her. The green light, she says. Of course. I should have realized it immediately. This also explains why their so-called trap affected Rose. It's because the reverse is what actually happened. Their mind-affecting spell could not target Rose, and so it appeared to us as if she'd been rendered unconscious. It's probably the same for Flower as well. Great, Darren says. So we're back to square one. Then we need to find the real mages so we can kill them and get out of the illusion. No, we don't. Aluna says. We only need to do that with the shaman because he trapped himself in the illusion with us in order to prevent us from escaping. Remember, since the mages are not actually here with us, it means that this illusion's main purpose was not to kill us, but to buy time so they could kill us in the real world while we were defenseless. This leads me to believe that the time is flowing at the same speed here as it is in the real world, which is different from what they experienced in the shaman world. Shaman ritual. Oh gods, Kate says. If that's true, then it means that Flower has been fighting the two mages by herself in the real world all this time. Most likely, Aluna says. We need to get out of here quick. Everyone, close your eyes and start visualizing the moment before the mages cast the illusion spell on us. You need to do this with the conviction that the image in your head represents the real world, and that you want to return to it. If we all do this at once, then we'll break the illusion's effect over us. Ooh, getting interesting. We all close our eyes and start doing as Aluna said. As I get a clear image of the city streets in my mind, the image starts to become clearer and clearer, until I feel myself getting pulled into it. And suddenly I realize that my imagination had become a reality, without me even noticing it. As I open my eyes, I see myself standing in the middle of the street, but everything looks a lot different from how I remembered it. There are craters all around us. The walls from the houses on the side of the street have all been charred, and there is a huge skeletal dragon standing in front of us right now. Rose is on her knees, crying. The Flower looks she's barely able to stand on her feet, but she's staring at the dragon defiantly. She is bruised all over, and her clothes are a complete mess. But there's a very intimidating aura surrounding her, feeling as if it were made from fire hotter than any of her elemental magic. When Flower senses that we've finally woken from the illusion spell, she turns to us and gives us a tired smile. You broke the spell, the girl says. I knew you could do it. I knew it. As she utters her last words, Flower's eyes slowly close, and then she drops to the ground. Unconscious, Darren is now hurrying over to her side in order to shield her from the dragon, in case it decides to strike her while she's down. She was so reckless, Rose says, and she's holding back at her tears. She never stopped fighting, even after she clearly exceeded her limits. She was desperately trying to protect you, even if it cost her own life. It's all right, Aluna says, as she takes control of the girl's body, but she doesn't get up from the ground. The girl only fainted due to exhaustion. She's not going to die. Do you see what you've done now, fool? Zack, the necromancer, tells his ally. If your useless god's spell had worked properly, like you said it would, we wouldn't be in this mess. Don't you dare pin this on me. The mage in the green robe says, while he's sweating all over, looking as if he's about to faint from exhaustion as well. My spell has never designed to work against fusion souls. It just targeted the soul that was controlling the body at the time, and left the other one alone. There was no way I could have prevented this from happening. You're the only one to blame for this. You stingy bastard. If you had just used that Stillwater summoning spell of yours when I told you, they would have all died within seconds. Be quiet, heathen, Zack says. I can only cast that spell once a day. It would be an insult to the great god of death, Ulrich, if I was to waste its one daily use so early in the morning on the likes of them. Are you kidding me? The green robe mage says. Do you have any idea how much magical energy I needed to spend in order to keep them in that fusion spell for so long? I had to cancel all of my protections for 2 hours ago, just so I'd be able to cast that damn spell. I don't even have the magic to shield on me right now. Just as the green robe's mage stops talking, an ice cone passes straight through his head, and soon afterwards he falls on the ground, lifeless. Thanks for letting me know, Kate says. You wench, Kate says, furious. Do you have no honor? It's his own damn fault for not paying attention to our fight, Kate says. And don't you talk to honor about me. Don't you talk to me about honor. You wouldn't have done exactly the same thing to us if Flower hadn't protected us while we were defenseless. Don't you lecture me, wench, Zack says. There is no need for honor killing when irredeemable heathens such as yourselves. So how do you become a follower of Ulrich anyway? Do they hold interviews for that? Don't mock the almighty god Ulrich, heathen, Zack says. The god of death welcomes all those who would dedicate their lives to serve him, without exception. Even if they are of no use to him alive, they can still serve him through their deaths, and that's exactly what you'll all be doing very soon. Luna, can you move? Darren asks. No, Luna says. The girl pushed her body way beyond its limits while we're in the illusion. I can feel an ache coming from every single bone in her muscle. I can't even manage to move one finger. Her body is bruised all over. Her clothes are a mess, and Araka's amulet is. She pauses for a moment, and all of a sudden, we hear a crack coming from the amulet around her neck. Oh, Luna says. Oh no. Ha 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 ha. The amulet cracks open, this time with a lot more violently than before, and Araka's laughter intensifies even further. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly the amulet breaks completely, and a dark aura envelops Luna as the girl's body slowly raises itself into the air in an upright position. A very powerful wind is now blowing in our faces, pushing us all away from her. while the sky is becoming darker and darker by the second. The girl's eyes are now slowly turning from bright blue to pitch black as she grins wildly, while looking at each of us in turn. So this is what you all look like in the flesh, Arakai says. It was kinda hard to tell from the inside of the amulet, going by the magical sense alone. How you people get by every day without being mistaken for a circus troupe is beyond me. You're one to talk, Heydrich says. You do realize that you are literally dressed like a clown right now, don't you? Arakai grins evilly at the Heydrich. Dwarf, she says. Are you sure it's a good idea standing right there cracking jokes? Shouldn't you rather be buying me a beer you owe me? I could really go for a drink right about now. That's a mass murder. I'm still not sure which one I should be starting with. Flower, Kate says weakly. What happened to Flower? Where are Flower and Aluna? Oh, they're dead, Arakai says. Or should I rather say absorbed? What happened is that I merged with their souls when I took over their body. They're both part of me now. So they're both still in there somewhere, Kate asks. Well, I guess you could say that, Arakai says. If you wanted to be all technical about it, but in fact the matter is, monster, Zack shouts, all of a sudden while pointing towards Arakai. Abomination! Begone, foul demon! Suddenly the skeletal dragon, which had not moved an inch since we escaped the illusion, flaps its wings and rushes towards Arakai, roaring loudly. Just as it reaches her, the dragon explodes into 1,000 tiny pieces that get scattered throughout the whole area around us. Really now, Arakai says. As the dragon's bones fly in all directions, the ground begins to shake, and several skeletons start to slowly rise from it. It doesn't take me long to realize that this is the necromancer's doing, and that all the skeletons standing in front of us were Stillwaters. Our Stillwaters. Do you understand now, Banshee? Zack says. Do you understand who you are facing against? This is the true power of the god of death. If you get on your knees now and beg for Ulrich's forgiveness, he might just see fit to grant you a quick and painless death. Arakai ignores the mage completely and chooses instead to stare intently at one of the skeletons that have risen from the ground. Wait a minute, Arakai says. I know you. You're Valen, right? Short-legged Valen who couldn't hold a tune to save his life. You're not going to hurt me, are you? Remember all those fun times we've had during the still winter? Remember that time when we had to fish you out of the pond because you fell in while you were practicing your flying spell, and you suddenly remembered that you couldn't swim? Remember how you used to make fun of you because you always walked funny after you expended all your magical energy? Remember when I tied you to a tree and forced you to watch me slowly murder all of your friends until you couldn't manage to hit all those notes that your kitty song about the lion and the lamb? Those were the days, huh? Now how did that song go again? Arakai clears her throat and starts to sing. Oh, there was a lamb, a lamb, a lamb, she says, and all that lamb had such a bright white wool. As Arakai sings the song, the skeleton named Valen starts to shake uncontrollably and put both its hands on its head as if it were having an intense headache. Eventually, its pain turns into rage, and it roars loudly, as it starts shooting fire out of its hands. The fire simply brushes off Arakai's magical shield as she acts as if nothing happened, continuing with her song. Why are you just standing there, you fools? Zack asks the yellow skeletons. Attack her! Kill her! The skeletons all start flinging spells at Arakai, attacking her with all types of elemental magic simultaneously, while also using spells to weaken her defenses. Arakai acts as if she doesn't even notice the onslaught of spells that are being cast upon her, and she continues to sing without any interruptions. You can't stop her. What? You can't stop your little act now, Banshee, Zack says, and I can see right through you. Even if you are acting calm and collected, the reality is that you can barely even withstand the barrage of attacks that are being flung against you, and that you have no means of fighting back, since my skeletons are now fully protected against sonic attacks. You could say that you have become near indestructible. There is nothing you can do to hurt them. Arakai stops singing, and she smells wickedly the necromancer. Oh, they're protected from sonic attacks, do you say? She says with a mocking tone, as the skeletons continue to attack her with everything they've got. How impressive. Truly, you are a mage among mages. But tell me, necromancer, did you consider shielding your puppets from pebbles as well? What kind of question is that, you little... Zack starts to say, but Arakai doesn't give him a chance to finish his question. While the necromancer was talking, Arakai made a few pebbles from the ground float into her hand, and she starts flinging them with her fingers towards each of the skeletons. With the pebbles reach them, the skeletons explode, but this time into pieces so small they could very well be confused with specks of dust. When the necromancer saw what happened, his jaw dropped, and he couldn't bring himself to utter another word. He was in too great a shock. Yeah, you go ahead and wrap that up and send it to the old Ulrich as a present, Arakai says, as she gestures towards the piles of dust on the ground. Tell him it's from Arakai. Tell him that she should be expecting many more presents from me in the near future. Tell him that once I'm done with this earthen plane, I'll be paying him a visit. I'll visit him. I'll visit Memphis. I'll visit every single one of those so-called gods that thought it would be a good joke to have me banned from the magical plane along with every other banshee in existence. And then we'll all have a party together while we reminisce over times long forgotten. Shut up, Darren says to Arakai all of a sudden as he starts walking towards her with a furious look on his face. I couldn't care less about your past or your personal vendettas. You bring them back, you hear me? You bring them all back this instant. Excuse me, Arakai says. You know what I'm talking about, Darren says. Flower and Aluna, you bring them back right now. What? Are you ugly and stupid, Arakai says. Didn't I just tell you that I absorbed their souls when I took over this body? What do you expect me to do? Cut them out of me with a meat cleaver? If you're not going to let them go, I'll force you to do it, Darren says as he pulls out his sword. Prepare yourself, Banshee. So mass murder it is then, Arakai says with a grin, as Darren rushes towards her. Before he even takes 3 steps, Darren suddenly starts to wither like a plant, at an incredible rapid pace. Within seconds, the only thing that's left on him is his armor, as the rest of his body had been completely turned to dust. No, Kate says as she places her hand on her mouth. No! She conjures hundreds of icicles that she aims towards Arakai before she gets to attack her with them, she withers just like Darren. Within seconds, nothing is left of her except a pile of dust. No, Rose shouts as she starts to cry. Please stop, please. What's the matter, Heydrich? Arakai says as she grins wickedly. Aren't you going to show me that giant's fighting spirit of yours and that you like to brag about so much? I'm right here. What are you waiting for? I'll show you fighting spirit, you arrogant old hag, Heydrich says as a trickle of sweat runs down the side of his forehead as he rushes towards Arakai, with his fists at the ready. Just like the two of him before, Heydrich quickly turns into dust, and all that remains of him is the leather boots. Please, Rose says, this time with a much weaker voice than before. They're dead. They're all dead. They all died right in front of me. How can this be? Is this another illusion? It has to be. That's right. It must be an illusion. I close my eyes and try to visualize the real world in my mind. I try to make an image as clear as possible, and I try to throw myself into it, just like I did before, but nothing happened. Nothing's happened. You're not going to seriously close your eyes and pretend that I'm not here, are you? Arakai tells me. Come on, take up your dagger. It's no fun killing you if you don't even put up a fight. Why not? Alright then, Arakai says, grinning. This is it, Barry. An epic duel of the ages in the making. Hero versus villain. Banshee versus Lessathai. The bards will be singing songs of us for thousands of years to come. Let's do this. Come on. I'm not going to fix anything if I just stand here moping about it. She doesn't expect me to be a threat. She's overconfident. Maybe I can use that against her somehow. Maybe if I kill her, everything will come back to normal. Maybe if she dies, her spells will be undone, and everyone will come back to life. I won't know until I try. I rush towards the Banshee, but I suddenly feel a sharp pain in my stomach, as a rock flies into me and knocks me off my feet. Oh, I'm sorry, was that too rough? Arakai says as I struggle to catch my breath. I'm not exactly sure how much damage you could take, since I've never really fought against a weakling like you before. Please leave him alone, Rose screams, while tears keep flowing down her eyes. I wouldn't want to kill you right off the bat, Arakai says. We should enjoy ourselves to the fullest, you know. You know what I'm saying? She then flings another rock below my chest, and I can feel my breath leaving me again. Stop, Rose says. You're hurting him. Huh? Arakai says. Well, I always knew you were a weakling, but I never imagined it would be this bad. This is painful to watch, really. I think I'm just going to spare you the embarrassment and kill you right now. No, don't do it, Rose cries as loud as she can. Goodbye, Barry, Arakai says as she waves her hand towards me, and I can feel my whole body starting to quickly dry up. It was fun while it lasted. Stop, Rose shouts again, and just as the last echoes of her words fade away, everything around me freezes in place. My body is not drying up anymore. Arakai isn't moving, and Rose's tears are floating in midair. Is this something that normally happens when you die? Is time supposed to feel like it's moving slower as you experience your final moments? I wouldn't know. I've never died before. Really. All of a sudden, everything begins to move in reverse, as I find myself spectating all the events that lead to my death. I see Arakai hitting me with rocks, and I see her kill Heydrich and Kate, and then Darren. I see her killing the Stillwater skeletons, and I see her breaking out of the amulet. Is this what they call one's life flashing before their eyes? Wow, this is actually pretty entertaining. I never knew that the dying could be this fun. Hey look, that's Flower fighting the skeletal dragon. How the hell am I seeing this? Wasn't I supposed to be in the illusion that while all this happened? Now all the craters are disappearing one by one. And we're back. At the moment where the two mages ambushed us. The string of events unraveled before my eyes now comes to a halt, and for a few seconds I find myself in a frozen state yet again, at the exact moment after we'd been ambushed by the two mages. Then, all of a sudden, the time starts moving again, and everyone is looking around themselves, with very confused expression on their faces. Wait a minute. Could this be possible? Was it not just my imagination? Are you actually telling me that I just witnessed time reversing itself, and that everyone still remembers what happened? I don't get a lot of time to think about what happened, because my suspicions get suddenly confirmed by an enraged Arakai. A time weaver? Arakai shouts from her amulet. Are you kidding me right now? And it was Rose. Of all people. You bastards knew this, didn't you? You all set me up. You knew this would happen. You let me escape on purpose so you could laugh at me, didn't you? Well, you know what? I'm done being nice. Next time I get it, I'm going to rip every single bone from your bodies, and I'll make your families watch. You're going to beg me to give you an easy death I gave you today. You hear me? I'm going to make your lives hell. Stop grinning at me, you stupid low-life dwarf. That's enough, Arakai. Luna says, I'm not sure what exactly happened after you escaped from the amulet, but I think I can get a general idea from what you just said. You lost. We won. Deal with it. If I hear any more of your whining, I'm going to close this amulet and never open it again. Do you understand? Arakai doesn't say anything, but I don't need to see her face to know that she must be fuming right now. I'm alive, the mage in the green robe says. But how? It was the winch, Zack says, as he points towards Rose. I saw it all happen before my eyes. She reversed time. Do you know what this means? Do you know what this could mean if any of our gods could get a hold of this kind of power? Before the green robe mage gets to answer that question, a cone of ice flies straight through his head, and he dies instantly. Your friend really shouldn't have told us that he cancelled all of his protection spells 2 hours ago, Kate tells the necromancer. That's just begging to be killed over and over. I don't care about that sad excuse of a mage anymore, Zack says. What I care about more than anything right now is that woman you are traveling with. Hand her over peacefully, and I will make your death swift. It's a tough decision to make, Heydrich says with a grin, but I'm afraid we're going to have to turn down your generous offer. No, stop it. So be it then, Zack says as he starts summoning his Stillwater skeletons again. Oh, no you don't, Heydrich says as he rushes towards the necromancer in order to kill them before he completes the spell. But one of the skeletons, who has only gotten the upper half of his body out of the ground, casts a powerful wind spell, which sends the door flying back towards us. Rose, get to safety, Darren says. The necromancer and the skeletons may not be able to harm you due to your tournament spell, but the same can't be said for us. If you stay too close to us, you'll risk getting caught in the crossfire. Okay, Rose says as she heads towards the opposite end of the market square. Once the skeletons have fully surfaced, two of them start attacking us simultaneously with a flurry of fire and water spells, while another one casts a magical barrier around him and all the other Stillwaters. Darren used his shield to create a magical barrier of his own all around us, but it looks like he won't be able to hold it for much longer if the Stillwaters keep attacking at this rate. If anyone has any ideas on how we can get out of this alive, now would be a good time to let us know, Darren says, as two newly formed walls of rock are closing in on his barrier, trying to break through it by using brute force. We can't fight them head on, Luna says. We need to focus on figuring out their weaknesses. They may be Stillwaters, but they're only still skeletons. If we examine them carefully, we are bound to discover a thing or two that we can use to our advantage. Well, I'm not trying to rush you or anything, Darren says, but I doubt I can hold this barrier for another minute. Realistically, it'll probably break a lot sooner than that. So yeah, if you plan on looking for weak spots, you'd better do it quick. Luna is right. Even if there are Stillwaters, they're still frail, undead bodies that are bound to leave them with a few exploitable weaknesses. Azarius has showed us this much. Even if the necromancer has learned from his past mistakes and shielded them against sonic attacks, there still should be something we can take to our advantage, not to mention that the necromancer spell only lasts about 5 minutes, and it's limited to 1 use per day. So barring any more unexpected time reversals, we should be in the clear if we manage to hold out for the entire duration of the spell. As I examine the skeletons carefully, I notice something peculiar about them. Even though their auras feel similar to that of Eden, their magical energy feels as if we were leaking out of their bodies at a very fast rate. If I were to venture a guess as to why that is happening, I would say it is most likely because their new bodies cannot keep up with the tremendous amount of energy that they have at their disposal. I am honestly surprised that my stat device isn't reacting to any of this. I would have expected it to be beeping like crazy by now. I take my stat booster to look at it, and I find out to my surprise that even though I don't have any new points to spend, there's a flashy message in the corner of my screen saying emergency mode available. Tap here to activate. Emergency mode? Is this something that I can only be activated when the device gets an access to a great amount of energy? If so, then this is what Eden did to power up my device when he pumped it with energy before my fight with the dragon. Unfortunately, I don't have much time to think through. I'm going to have to rely on my guts here. And my guts say that I should take this chance while I still have it. As I tap the emergency mode message, I suddenly feel a great amount of energy surging through my body, similar to what happened last time before my fight with the dragon. And just like last time, I realize that I now have access to an impressive roster of spells, as well as the knowledge required to be able to cast them. For a moment, I could see 2 additional stats being displayed on my device's screen, next to the 9 existing ones. The stats were named Magical Power and Magical Knowledge, but they disappeared almost as quickly as they appeared. I think I might be starting to understand what happened here. The emergency mode somehow powers up 2 hidden stats that I don't normally have access to, but it only does so temporarily, when the device gets a hold of a surplus amount of energy that can't be assimilated immediately. This is how Eden powered up my device for my fight with Tyra. I'm sure of it. The feeling I'm getting is exactly the same as back then, even though I don't seem to have access to nearly as many spells as I did last time. This time around, it seems like I don't have any flight or teleportation spells available, so I guess I'll have to move around the old-fashioned way. I'm also missing some of the bigger spells that I had access to last time, and I can feel that the power behind each of my spells is significantly weaker than it was with Eden's powered up the device. Regardless, this is the best chance I've got to turn the tables around, and I need to take full advantage of this opportunity. I'll first need to decide whether I want to engage the enemy alone, or if I should try to work with everyone else as a team in order to take the skeletons out. Working as a team has its advantages, but also it means that I may be forced to limit the firepower behind some of my spells in order to avoid endangering my teammates. However, if I convince them to wait here, I can provide them with both Bear's protection. Will keep them both safe and out of my way for the defeat. Well, I'll fight them as a team. It'd be too risky to fight them all by myself. Coordinating my attacks with everyone else should definitely increase our chances of victory. There are 5 Stillwaters in total, of which 4 seem to be elementalists that each have a mastery over a different magical element, and the 5th appears to be specialized in supporting the others by either weakening the enemy's defenses or casting protections on his allies. Given their perfect lineup, I'm going to assume that they were part of a squad during their still winter, and that they died together during one of their missions. However, the 5 of them combined are nowhere near Eden's level. They may have a lot of magical power and energy, but besides that, they are not any different from regular mages. The elementalists don't have control over more than one element. The supporting mage isn't casting any other spells than the ones he specializes in, and none of them seem to be able to ignore the laws of magic in the same way that Eden does. Meanwhile, my stat device's emergency mode gives me access to all of the 4 traditional magical elements, as well as the non-traditional ones such as ice, acid, and electricity. I also think that my current power level is somewhat comparable to that of each Stillwater, but I can't be 100% sure of that because I've never had the opportunity to fight mages on equal terms before. The question now is what the focus of our fight should be. If we're just aiming to buy time until the necromancer's spell runs out, then our best would be to keep reinforcing Darren's barrier while attacking the skeletons from afar. Our main target in this case should be the supporting Stillwater, since he would be the one constantly trying to weaken our barrier, and since killing the necromancer would not actually cancel the spell before its time limit. If our aim was to instead eliminate the Stillwaters directly, our best bet would be to aim for the necromancer, since the skeleton's main priority would be to defend their master and would serve to disrupt the rhythm. I'll try to buy some time. Guys, I say, I think I might have a plan. What the hell, Darren says? What's with this crazy magical energy rating from you all of a sudden? Don't tell me that Eden froze time again and gave you magical powers. No, I say, as I start to reinforce the magical barrier. It wasn't Eden, it was just... I just used my device to harness the energy that's being leaked from the Stillwaters. You can do that now? Darren asks me. Apparently, I say. So what's the plan of yours, then? Darren asks. Well, I say, I remember how Azarius told us last time that the necromancer's spell only lasts 5 minutes, and that it can only be cast once a day. I was thinking that we could just wait them out, while we kept reinforcing the barrier and attacking them from a distance. In that case, I'm hoping you have some really good reinforcement spells, Darren says, because I've pretty much already exhausted all of mine. Don't worry, I say. You just focus on keeping the barrier up. I'll take care of the reinforcements. I turn towards Flower and Kate. Can you three put up some pressure on the Stillwaters while me and Darren keep the barrier up? Aye, aye, sir, Darren's Flower says. As she performs a military salute with her right hand, I'll see what I can do, Kate says. Try to aim for the skeleton maintaining their magical barrier for as much as possible, I say. He's the one that's going to be busy undoing my reinforcement spells. And what am I supposed to do all this time, Heydrich says. Well, you can start to say, but I pause to think for a second. You can be our last line of defense and make sure to punch all to punch back all of their spells in case our barrier fails before the time limit. Great, Heydrich says. It's time like these that make me regret the fact that I didn't bring my pack of playing cards with me when I joined the tournament. Once everyone agrees to follow my plan, I go back to reinforcing Darren's barrier while Kate, Flower, and Aluna start to cast their spells at the Stillwaters. Holding the barrier against so many simultaneous attacks is proving to be a little more difficult than I originally thought. Darren is already at his limit, and keeping the barrier up by myself is quickly starting to drain me of energy. The girls don't seem to be doing very well either, because they've yet to break through the skeleton's barrier. While the supporting Stillwater is doing all he can to counter my reinforcement spell. This isn't working out. I need to revise my plan, and we're not going to last until the 5-minute mark. Well, Heydrich, I say, there's been a change of plans. How would you like to provide us with a little distraction for us? The dwarf face lightens up when he hears my suggestion. Now you're talking, Barry, he says, with a wide grin. What do you want me to do? Should I just go and attack the necromancer to give him a little scare? Yeah, that's exactly what I had in mind, I say. Hold on, let me cast a few protection spells on you. Once I'm done with casting the protection spells on Heydrich, the dwarf dashes out of the barrier and reaches the necromancer in a few seconds. The air elementalist reacts quickly, and he uses a wind spell to push Heydrich back several dozen feet. By the time Heydrich gets back, the supporting skeleton placed a magical barrier around their master, which the dwarf is now trying to break with a flurry of fists. No, 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 you're doing it all wrong, Arakai shouts at us from inside the amulet. Stop attacking the whole barrier and focus on just one point. Can't you see how slowly their supporting mage is reinforcing the individual parts of the barrier? It's because he never learned how to properly localize his energy output. I kept telling him about it 600 years ago, but the idiot wouldn't believe me until I demonstrated it to him by using a goddamn tree branch to break through his barrier and puncture his lungs. Taking advice from Arakai is not something I am particularly keen on doing right now, but as I take a look towards the skeleton's magical barrier, I can at least tell that she is not lying. The magical area energy is spread thin throughout the whole barrier, which helps a great deal against spells with a wide area effect, but it should leave it vulnerable against more focused attacks. I start charging up a lightning attack in my hands, and when it becomes powerful enough, I aim it directly at the supporting mage, making sure that all of the power behind my strike is concentrated on a single point. My lightning strike goes straight through the skeleton's barrier and hits the supporting Stillwater in the skull, killing him instantly. As their magical barrier starts to disappear, the other 4 skeletons that were hiding underneath it are now standing around, looking very confused. I take advantage of this and use a great deal of magical energy to create a large pool of acid underneath the Stillwaters. The skeletons are caught unawares, and they had no time to react. As they all sink slowly into the pool of acid, the air elementalist uses his wind spells to lift the upper half of his body that hasn't yet melted into the air, but I quickly raise 2 chunks of rock from the ground, and I use it to smash the skeleton's head between them. Eventually, all the skeletons sink fully into the acid, and my device's energy depletes completely. The pool of acid disappears. The skeleton's head, however, already completely melted before this happened, which means that the necromancer is now the only enemy left standing. No, Zack shouts as the barrier around him begins to disappear. I won't let it end like this. Right after he finishes his sentence, the necromancer takes a knife out of his robes and uses it to stab himself in the chest. He then gets enveloped in a bright red light, and as soon afterwards he starts tearing into ashes. The god of death shall have his prize, Zack says, just before he draws his last breath. As we all gather around to look at the pile of ashes that necromancer has turned into, Heydrich starts to laugh. As far as final words go, I've heard better, the dwarf says. This wasn't just some empty threat, Aluna says, while she looks around frantically as if she were expecting something to blow up. That thing he just cast, well, was a sacrificial spell. A kind of spell that requires the death of its caster as payment, in exchange for providing effects that would not normally be attainable through normal means. The curse of death that the ogre shaman cast on me before we left the fort was also one of these spells. This isn't over yet. Relax, Heydrich says. If his all-powerful Stillwater skeletons couldn't kill us, what do you expect him to do after he's already dead? That's some tough talk coming from someone who couldn't even identify an obvious weakness in their enemy's defenses, Arakai says. You should all be in toast if it wasn't for me. I'm the one who saved all of you losers. Where's my reward for that, huh? Oh, I've got your reward right here, Heydrich says as he grabs Arakai's amulet from Flower's neck, and he starts spinning it by the chain. Wait, Flower says, don't do that. Didn't I tell her that she has motion sickness? Really? Heydrich says with a grin, as he continues to spin Arakai. Huh. I guess it must have slipped my mind. Can I spin her next, I say? Sure you can, Barry, Heydrich says. Everyone can take turns spinning Arakai. In fact, I'm thinking of making this into a daily routine of sorts from now on. But I need you to consult with Arakai first. I wouldn't want to impose. What do you say, Arakai? Does 10 in the morning sound like a good okay hour for our daily spinning sessions? Dwarf, Arakai says, as Heydrich continues to spin her. When I get out of here again, I'm going to stick my hand through your throat and turn you inside out. And then I'm going to hang you from a tree by your own intestines so I can use you as a swing. So, 10 o'clock too early then? Heydrich asked with a grin. Would it be better if we scheduled it for the 11th in the morning instead? Hearing, observation, and speed. Okay. While Heydrich and Arakai are talking, I hear the sound of stones starting to crumble somewhere on the opposite side of the market square. I turn around in order to try and identify the source of the sound, and I realize that the stones on the ground in front of Rose are all slightly cracked. I get a really ominous feeling about this, and before I get time to think through, my body moves on its own, and I start running towards Rose as fast as I can. Just as I reach her, all the stones in front of Rose suddenly get sent flying into the air as the skeleton emerges from underneath them and tries to stab her in the heart with a rusted knife. I pull the skeleton away from her and slam him on the ground as I take out my own dagger, and prepare to deliver the finishing blow. To my surprise, there was no need for me to stab the skeleton, because it had already crumbled into pieces the moment it hit the ground. Rose, are you alright? Darren shouts as he and all the others are running towards us. Yes, Rose says, thanks to Barry. Barry, how did you know what would happen? Kate asked me. Did the stat booster give you premonition? No, I say. I didn't know there would be a skeleton. I just noticed that something was trying to make its way out of the ground near Rose. I didn't want to wait and see what it was. Still, I don't understand why the necromancer would do this, Kate says. Wouldn't the tournament spell have prevented the skeleton from hurting Rose? No, Aluna says. When the necromancer died, the tournament spell linked to him disappeared along with his aura. This trap was specifically designed to activate after his death, in order to circumvent the protection spell's effects. He was trying to use a loophole. This is likely the result of the sacrificial spell he used before he died. Oh gods, Rose says. I never knew that magic could be used like that. I can't believe he'd go to such lengths just to kill me. Well, to be fair, he did witness you reverse time itself for a few minutes, Heydrich says. Just how in the blazes did you pull off that stunt anyway? I don't know, Rose says. Eden told me that I was a time weaver before, but I thought he was mistaken. I really have no idea how I did it. I was just so desperate to undo everything that had happened that I must have triggered my powers by accident. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do that again, anything like that again. Well, once was more than enough, Darren says. You didn't just save all of our lives by rewinding time. You may well have saved the entire world. But we can talk about that later. Right now, I need to heal everyone. We wouldn't want to be caught off guard by some other crazy duo of mages who are hunting for bounties. Soon after Darren starts to heal us, a loud booming noise suddenly starts to echo all throughout the city. The sky above us then quickly gets filled with a very large holographic screens, as people are slowly starting to open their windows in order to get a good look, even if they seem to be too scared to come out anywhere near us. It appears that all of the screens are displaying the same thing, which is to say a gnome with messy hair wearing protection goggles and an oil-stained lab coat who is currently fiddling with some wires in some kind of workshop while he's humming a joyful tune. After a few more seconds of humming, the gnome suddenly looks onward to us, takes off his goggles, and he glues his face on the screen. How peculiar, the gnome says as he backs away from the screen. How very peculiar. I could swear that I've already connected with these wires a million times before, but I've never seen the red light turn green until now. Well, no matter. Can everyone hear me? There's a pause in which we can hear a loud murmur coming from the people watching the screens from their windows. Wait, what am I saying? The gnome says. This is a one-way transmitter. Even if you answer me, they won't be able to hear you. I won't be able to hear you. Okay, here's what I'll do. I'm going to go ahead and read you this little speech I've got written here on my parchment. And if anybody can actually hear me, I'll just read it again some other time. Now, where did I put this blasted parchment? The gnome disappears under the screen for about 10 seconds, during which the murmur in the marketplace intensifies. Well, I could swear I had it around here somewhere, the gnome says as he comes back from under the screen. No matter, I'll just improvise then. The gnome clears his throat before he continues. Ladies and gentlemen, the gnome says, or should I just be saying gentlemen in this case, since there aren't any women mages. Gentlemen and gentlemen, welcome to the Magium tournament. I am Gulmic, the king of Caelius, and I would have a public announcement to make. First of all, I would like to begin with an apology to all of the mages that have just joined the tournament. When you first arrived on the continent, you were all told that you'd be receiving your objectives privately, but unfortunately, the device that was supposed to be relaying these messages to you broke shortly after your arrival. I've been trying to fix it ever since, but given that a whole week has already passed, I decided to use this old transmitter as a temporary solution. Until I manage to get the original device to work properly. Normally, this transmission should be reaching all the cities of Varathia and even some areas in the wilderness, but since I can't guarantee that every single mage on this continent will be seeing this, I would like you to ask you all to pass this information to your fellow participants who missed the announcement. The gnome clears his throat again. And now that the introductions are out of the way, Golnick says, I believe it is formally time to give you all what you've been waiting for. The gnome grins. Your first objectives, he says. Ooh, end of book 1. Proceed to book 2. I wonder what that is. This marks the end of the first Magium book. I've only written the first 7 chapters of the second book so far, but the rest of the chapters will be uploaded one by one as soon as they are written. It should take about 1 to 2 months to write a new chapter, depending on its length. My current estimate is that the 8th chapter of the second book should be released towards the middle of October. It's November now, so 8 books should be out. If you pay to remove these ads for the first book, then the second book should automatically be unlocked. Otherwise, you will need to complete 25 achievements from the first book in order to unlock the second one. You can see how many more achievements you need to complete the achievements menu. I would also like to add that I strongly suggest you save the game now on a save slot. You won't overwrite if you're planning to start completing achievements, since you otherwise lose the progress in your current playthrough and you'll have to finish the book and blah blah blah. You should be able to configure to not to uninstall the game, so all the other books will be uploaded in the same app, and you'll be on it. Hey, look at that. Okay. I'm going to. I think I already saved. Whoopsie crap. Okay. All right. Sounds good. Okay. Anyway, that's the end of chapter 11. It was a while, but anyway, that's it. And I will unlock book 2. And I'll probably just pay for the ads so I don't have to go through and get all the whatever. Unless I only need a couple. But wow, that was fun. That was really interesting and long. Really excited. I will be doing book 2 sometime. Now that I actually have a way to do it and I don't have to try and search for a week on Google to figure out how to do it. But thank you all for watching. I hope I didn't bore you too much. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye.